Alright, so this one's chapter 38, part 2. This was a lot shorter. Took me less time to write it out. Out of that week, I think the longest one is going to be that part 1. Probably personally, my strategy is going to be focusing on that big one because it's a lot more information. All the other slides are a lot shorter. But, going on. It just starts off with multi-drug resistant organisms. You just have MRSA, VRE, and ESBL. MRSA, 50% of community staff infections involve MRSA. It's the most common one, and now it's found in both hospitals and in community. The VRE, not much information we were given on the slide, but I still looked some stuff on it. But common in UTIs, the how associated with that one. ESBL, the way I remember it is, it says right there, resistant to all beta-lactams and I don't know how to pronounce that, but if I remember right, beta-lactam is associated with like penicillin and all the other stuff that's under that category back in part 1. And then it says treated with carbapenems, and if you remember, carbapenems was the one that you infused over 60 minutes, and the one that was prone to seizures, and to reduce that chance of seizures is to make sure you're doing the dose right. And you got your alternatives and examples. Well, we only have 2 main groups on this chapter, and then the rest are miscellaneous antibiotics. But first is the aminoglycosides. There's the examples. I won't go over each of them because I don't have them memorized yet. But it inhibits protein synthesis. Now, the way I remember it is, remember that amino acids builds proteins. So, inhibits protein synthesis. That's the way I remember on that one. Spectrum, mostly with gram-negative and some gram-positive as you go on. Indication, serious gram-negative infections. These are usually paired up with other ones I said right there, combined with beta-lactams or vancomycin for synergy. And then these are not really good orally. Giving orally, it doesn't really work well, and it doesn't absorb GI. But the reason I'm pointing it out, because what I read on it is that neomycin is like the exception. As you can see there, it works well for GI decontamination, and some of these are given orally. And you can also give one through inhalation for lung infections. Adverse effects, kidney toxicity, I can't pronounce it, but that has to do with the ears. You got your neuromuscular blockade, and there's more there, but I think my face covers it. I haven't figured out how to move it yet, but drug monitoring and monitoring renal function. And on the drug monitoring, it's covered, but it's just to monitor the peak and trough levels. Going on, that's your other one. I can't pronounce it, but disrupts bacterial DNA replication. Now, there's only 2 on this chapter, so me personally, I didn't come up with a way to remember that one, just because I know that the amino one is protein, so the other one is just DNA. But indications, gram-negative. It fights really hard resistant ones, because I do know that there's an example right there. I don't think my mouse shows on it, but this PSEU, I can't pronounce it, but I associate those with highly drug resistant, infections. But complicated UTIs, respiratory, GI, bone, joint infections, STIs, and then interactions. There it is with the little arrow. What causes less absorption are antacids, and these are like just the original, but it's calcium, magnesium, iron, and zinc, I believe. And there's other ones that you can read. Adverse effects, they're really general, but I got them separated. Common ones, headache, dizziness, insomnia. There's more, but I remember it. Most of them just kind of like brings you down. No, depression's on there too. But your serious ones are QT prolongation, seizures, confusion. And I did notice that the big one is tendon rupture. And I even got like a black box warning, risk of tendon rupture, tendonitis, central nervous system effects. And then vancomycin falls under miscellaneous antibiotics. I just don't know why it got put here. When I was copying and pasting my notes, it kind of just moved it there, but it's fine. But what is the common uses? Usually for MRSA, serious gram-positive infections. Adverse effects, again, kidney, has to do with the ears. Redman syndrome has to do with flushing, itching, hypotension from rapid infusion. I like to think it was Redman syndrome. I like to think allergies, just to remember that flushing and itching. And then there's the hypotension. Now, phlebitis at IV site. You got your rare ones like neutropenia, thrombocytopenia, or neuromuscular blocking effects. And what should you do or monitor? Monitor renal function, their blood levels, and infuse slowly over 60 minutes. Antihistamine may reduce red man reaction. Going on, and yeah, we're still on miscellaneous. I believe there's only 4 on these for the miscellaneous. So if you can just remember, you have your amino protein, and you have the other one that's DNA, and then you have your miscellaneous. But here we have the clindamycin, indications chronic bone, and that's Geno U something, I can't remember it, how to pronounce it. But you got your intra-abdominal infections, and you have your wrist there listed, your metro, I can't pronounce that either. But you got your indications, anaerobic infections, intra-abdominal, protozoal infections, and you got your nitro, I can't pronounce that. But concentrates in urine, caution, renal impairment, fatal liver toxicity. I believe that is the where that goes to. But the way I remember these is when it comes to the top one, I like to think it starts with a C, so I'll think calcium just to help me with that bone part, and the rest kind of just easier to remember. Same for the metro, I haven't come up with one yet, but for the nitro, I just associate it with UTIs. I don't really have trouble associating with this. And then the last few slides on this chapter just talks about like what you can do as a nurse and what you should be doing. Assessing allergies, assessing you want to assess all their, how you say it, like cardiac functions, renal ones, stuff they're going to have to do with the medication or the antibiotic. Want to make sure it's all running right. Get cultures before antibiotics, make sure you're giving the right one. Teach them to take full prescribed course, because even though it feels better, doesn't mean it's fixed. Monitor for super infection. There's some things listed in there. What indications like fever, discharge, cough, perineal itching, and evaluate the effects. Is it working or is it just getting worse?